What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss the fourth stimulus package update, stimulus check update, daily news, everything going on here in our country, in Washington, D.C., with our economy, money, investing, the stock market, everything you need to know about on a daily basis. If you're new to our YouTube channel, make sure to click the subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on new videos that come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you find these videos helpful, don't forget to hit the like button for us down below. We got a lot to talk about here today, so let's just jump right in. Starting with parts of Canada are going into full-blown lockdown. That's right. Yeah, as you can see here, some remote communities and different areas in Canada are completely locking down and banning outsiders as the virus spreads. Yeah, and this is as Canada only has about 40,000 cases per day. The US is averaging it's like 700,000 cases per day. Remember, just a few days ago, we had over 1 million cases per day. Of course, the US has a lot more population. They have a fraction of our population, but there are parts of Canada, as you can see here, that are completely locking down. Here's another article here from Bloomberg that says the US is open as Canada shuts down. The difference, their healthcare systems. The US is a free market system and has more surge capacity than Canada's. And the Omicron virus variant exposes a trade-off of government-run healthcare. It does kind of make you wonder if we will see any shutdowns or lockdowns here. We are seeing some business shutdowns here and school shutdowns here in the U.S. We have a lot of school shutdowns here in the U.S., and a lot of schools are going virtual. And the question kind of remains, will we see more here on more of a lockdown here in the U.S.? There are a lot of other countries around the world. China, Austria, Australia had a 242-day lockdown. Parts of Australia. There are countries around the world that are in full-blown lockdown right now. China has a city of over 13 million people. That's larger than New York City. That is on full-blown lockdown right now. That's a lot of people. So, yeah, a lot of people, complain about the U.S. Imagine being the whole New York City on full-blown lockdown. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think we'll see anything like that ever again? And remember, when we actually had our kind of lockdown here in the U.S., we had around 40,000 cases in the U.S. Now we're 700,000 to 1 million cases in the U.S. Can't make this stuff up. Meanwhile, Canada just said that they're expanding their pandemic relief programs and stimulus programs to their residents as well, as the US is considering this as well. Check this out. Canada will temporarily expand economic support program eligibility amid another wave of virus shutdowns fueled by the Omicron variant. The surges have prompted widespread closures. Wage and rent support will be offered to all workers and employers affected by pandemic capacity restrictions. Yeah, wage and rent support. Interesting there. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said, quote, "We will be there with support for the areas that need it," announcing the relief expansion at a virtual news conference. He also said that 6 members of his staff, including 3 members of his security detail, had tested positive for the virus, although the Prime Minister said he had taken several rapid tests himself that have come back negative. Last week, the Parliament passed the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit. Lockdown benefit, wow. A program that grants a Canadian $300 each week to Canadians who are unable to work because of pandemic shutdowns. Woo. Pandemic shutdowns kind of makes you wonder if this could happen to the US. Meanwhile, US lawmakers, Republicans, and Democrats in Congress are considering, you can see here, new stimulus checks, new stimulus packages, even executive orders. You can see here this article as of yesterday why new virus stimulus checks could come soon. Democrats and Republicans are discussing new virus stimulus checks. So, yeah, this article is here literally as of yesterday. Also, here as of yesterday, this is from CNN. Lawmakers discuss additional COVID relief amid Omicron. And with 700,000 to a million cases per day, think of all the people that are in quarantine and are sick and cannot work. Even if they're not badly sick, they still can't go to work. And a lot of paid leave does not exist because a lot of employers don't offer it unless you work at a really good job, a really high end job. Most small time employers, most small businesses do not offer paid sick leave. And that could be one of the reasons why stimulus checks are back on the table, why they're considering another stimulus package here. And they're also considering it for small businesses, for restaurants, for the travel industry, because if you think about the restaurants and small businesses as well, they're getting absolutely crushed right now and have been for a while. Um, yeah, I mean, you got to think about the average small business owner that has kind of been hanging on through this pandemic, and here we are going into year number 3 of this pandemic. Imagine you're just a little mom and pop shop that owns a little pizzeria or a little Italian restaurant, and here you are going into 2022, still trying to keep your restaurant going on as like 40% of all small businesses have already gone out of business. It's really tough out there, you know. I mean, a small business owner as a restaurant or anything in the travel industry, you think maybe a bed and breakfast, a little hotel owner, those are like the toughest small businesses right now that are struggling. And that is another thing that Congress is considering right now with this kind of emergency pandemic stimulus package. This is in addition to the Build Back Better package as well. Here's kind of the most recent talk updates on that. Check this out.
To much last year, what's changed in the new year?
Well, let's review. Manchin said at the end of December he just could not vote for the Build Back Better legislation as it was written in Congress. And he was the needed 50th vote, so the Democrats couldn't pass it. So Manchin has actually indicated what he would be willing to vote for. Basically, it's take out that child tax credit, either take that out or keep it included, but provide the funding to keep it in place for, let's say, 5 to 10 years, something that looks less gimmicky than just 1 year extension of that tax credit. So if that's the way the legislation goes, though, that's going to upset other elements within the Democratic Party who insist that that child tax credit has to be in there. So the real question is whether President Biden can just get Democrats on the same page. I mean, there are a number of things that I think all Democrats could agree on in that legislation. Climate change funding, for example, green energy transition funding for that. But it's getting everybody to agree to give up some things, and that's what it's going to take to get this over the finish line.
Meanwhile, Democratic Senator from Colorado, Michael Bennet, pushes back against Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, saying the U.S. shouldn't be punishing workers by cutting off the monthly checks to parents, the child tax credits, fighting back against Senator Joe Manchin with the work requirements and the income requirements that Senator Joe Manchin wants to put on the child tax credits to pass them in 2022. Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado told Insider, quote, "I don't think we should be punishing workers at the moment when 97% of the people who receive the tax credit are working, when there are grandparents people driving Ubers and Lyfts that may not file W-2s. This comes after Joe Manchin dug in further on attaching what amounts to an earnings requirement on the beefed up child tax credit, which expired in December. Manchin said, quote, "I've been very clear on that. I think there should be a work requirement on that." He also wants families to demonstrate they have taxable earnings with a W-2 form, which some experts say could shut out parents who are Uber drivers or independent contractors. A W-2 is typically issued by an employer to prepare a person to file their taxes. This would also disclude grandparents, grandmas, and grandpas that raise their children and would not get those children the child tax credits either. Millions of grandparents would be excluded from getting the child tax credit as well as anybody that's disabled and has children as well and can't work. Probably several million people there. Just coming up with a lot of situations here that Joe Manchin would exclude. And of course, there's always the possibility, this had been brought up before, that by a tax expert that said the way Joe Manchin had worded it, that both parents would have to probably work to qualify for the work requirement. So if they both don't work, it's unclear whether or not the family would qualify for the child tax credits. So that means mom and dad may have to work to satisfy the work requirements. So a lot of things going on here. Now there are Republicans that are in the mix right now, negotiating with Democrats to pass the child tax credits possibly as well. But a lot of Republicans want the work requirements as well. But there is a lot of potential talks here on how to pass them for 2022, but may have work requirements and also may have income thresholds. The Joe Manchin wants a $60,000 income cap threshold for a family. So that would be for a single filer or a mother and a father married filing jointly. So that would mean $60,000 combined income. So $30,000 and $30,000. Now that's up for negotiation. It could go higher or lower. I will keep you up to date here. Also remember that Senator Joe Manchin is basically the only Democrat that wants these requirements. Kirsten Sinema hasn't said anything about these requirements. So if Joe Manchin bends on these requirements, they could probably pass the Build Back Better bill with the reconciliation card on their own with just Democrats. That's how they passed the third stimulus check package through the reconciliation process with just the 50 to 51 votes. That's how the $1,400 stimulus check was passed, the $1,400 stimulus checks for children, the $1,400 stimulus check for adult dependents and college students, and the $3,000, $3,600 child tax credits that was passed for 1 year, 2021, has now expired. And they want to pass the Build Back Better package through that as well if Joe Manchin comes on board, and they are negotiating with him now. Biden has talked with him several times. If they can sway him or negotiate it, change the terms a little bit, and come up with a slightly different bill, throw anything they want in there, they could pass it all with just Democrats, or maybe with some Republicans, maybe do some standalone bills. Now remember, there's the Build Back Better bill, and then there's this other bill. There could be several other bills here. So remember when we talk about stimulus, like COVID stimulus here, okay? Think about like virus stimulus here, right? We might see a couple different standalone mini bills here, okay? We might see a bill for businesses. Hopefully we might see a bill for stimulus checks. Who knows what we might see here. As the virus gets really bad, I mean, it's as bad as it's ever been, right? We're talking 700,000 to 1 million people testing positive per day. It's as bad as it's. Let's hope it never gets worse than this, please. But Congress is now discussing this, right? So they could pass a large package. They could put everything into one. They could pass a couple different bills for small things, what they call piecemeal or standalone bills. It really just depends. They could pass a bill this in the next week. They could pass a bill for restaurants and small businesses. They could pass a standalone bill for stimulus checks. They could do executive orders too. So there's about 500 to 800 billion dollars, billion with a B, that is stimulus money that is already approved from past stimulus packages. Okay, that is just sitting there. Okay, and that can be theoretically. I say theoretically because when it comes to executive orders, it's a really gray area, and you have to be a executive order scholar. And even when you sometimes we'll see interviews by people that are like executive order scholars, right? I feel like I know a pretty decent amount on executive orders because I listen to all these people, and we've seen Trump, former President Donald Trump, do his executive order for $1,800 worth of stimulus checks, basically unemployment bonus checks, whatever you want to call them, that went out to millions of people for stimulus checks, unemployment bonus checks, whatever you want to call them, through executive order, where he basically took money from the disaster relief fund and reappropriated it to millions of people, okay, through executive order. And the Democrats could have challenged it, but they decided in a court of law, but they decided not to, okay? Basically, stimulus checks. Biden could do the same thing and send them out to anybody who he wants to. Trump decided to choose unemployed people. Biden could decide to choose low income people. Again, whoever he wants to, say $50,000 of income and under, whoever he wants to, right? Unemployed people, anybody wants to, right? And use that pot of already approved stimulus money. Okay. That's basically what Trump did. He used the already approved money called the disaster relief fund. Okay. So again, what my father would say is if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. So that is where, and remember, we have Pramila Jayapal saying, start passing pieces and parts through executive order. Now, I kind of feel like if he does executive orders, say he starts to break apart, let's put stimulus checks here for a side here, just for a moment. If he starts to take pieces and parts of the Build Back Better package and starts to pass it through executive order, then you kind of take Manchin's vote, and he probably, I don't know if I want to say probably, but it would probably really tick off Joe Manchin, right? It would probably seal his vote. I don't know. I don't know if that's really true, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. That would probably make Joe Manchin really not want to vote for the Build Back Better package. So I don't know if it's a last ditch resort. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. But I don't know if Biden wants to go executive order route with the Build Back Better package per se. Because, I don't know, maybe, because I feel like politicians have short memories. Like when it came to the debt limit, and I'm just kind of throwing an example here. I'm not picking sides or anything like that. But remember when the Republicans said they would never vote for the debt limit, and then a month or two later they did? I just kind of feel like politicians have short memories when it comes to things like this. So like I feel like Joe Manchin is a perfect example here. Like he says, I'm not going to vote for something. And then 2 weeks later, or a week later, he says, all right, I'll negotiate with you. It's kind of the perfect example, right? You see this from a lot of politicians, right? Where they say, all right, I'm okay with something. And then a week later, they're like, I'm not doing it. Or vice versa. I'm never going to vote for that. And then 2 weeks later, they vote for it. It's just kind of how politicians are sometimes, right? That's why if you ever see, the age-old saying, if you want to know how politicians lying, their mouth is moving. All right, it's just kind of because they're always just changing their mind, right? That's why when you get their yes vote, you vote right then. You get it right then and there. Or as a salesman would say, when you get the sale, you take the sale right then and there. You take it when you get the chance. You don't talk to them for 20 more minutes because you might talk your way out of a sale. Same thing with Joe Manchin. As soon as you get the yes from him, you vote that day. You vote that day because by tomorrow he might change his mind. And with Joe Manchin, that's really true. So also want to update you on my brother-in-law, Jim Monticelli. He says he's doing a little bit better, but he's recovering very, very slowly. So he's probably going to be in the hospital for a while. He was hoping to come back yesterday, but that's not going to happen. Well, it didn't happen, but so we're praying for him. I'm texting with him, and thank you everybody for your thoughts and prayers. I'll keep you up to date here. Remember, he's just a few years older than me. I think he's like 3 years older than me. So take this virus serious because it can affect anybody really, really hard. So my thoughts and prayers go out to everybody that is dealing with this right now. Of course, we're all dealing with this in some way, in fashion, and form. But I've seen a lot of comments from people that have tested positive, or friends or family have tested positive. My thoughts and prayers go out to everybody. And I will keep you up to date here with everything going on here in our country with stimulus and everything you need to know about here on a daily basis. So remember our motto: think positive, be kind, and be safe. And be safe. Thanks, guys. I love you. And you can click here to watch my newest video next. Thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next video.